Happy Tuesday. I hope everyone's having a good week so far. I wanted to pick up on episode 3 of Furious on Hulu, starring Emmy Rossum. And we stopped where they are trying to track down a female serial killer. And Catherine, that is the serial killer, is just paving her way through the town. Okay. She is hustling and she is making her way and just doing all types of scams to get a new identity, to get supplies, to get she actually had her drugs confiscated when she went to the women's shelter that we previously talked about in the earlier episodes, and she seduced one of the caretakers there, and she has her doing her bidding now. So she had her reconfiscate the drugs and she's having her buy a wig. So she's preparing for not only is she working one victim, she's preparing for her other. So far she's killed 3 men, but 2 men are featured on the show and they're both very wealthy. And the first man that she killed is known to be a trafficker of young girls. Thankfully, they don't do any graphic flashbacks on the show, but there's definitely a lot of talk about human trafficking. So that is definitely a trigger warning if you don't like that type of subject matter. So the first man that she killed was featured in the literally the opening of the episode, and she was in the middle of killing him while the trick-or-treaters are out, and she is so cold. She actually answered the door for a trick-or-treater and then went right back to business and setting up his death to look like a suicide. The second man she met as she had finally set up her fake identity. She was working as an event server and they go back to his place and she seduces him and she takes a scan of his apartment so she can see where the cameras are, and she actually talks him into letting her stay all day and she'd be ready for whatever he wants to do when when he returns from work. So she ultimately seduces him and then she does her usual routine, making it look like he is high on drugs, but the plan kind of gets messed up because his daughter is coming over for a stay with him. But I was nervous that she's going to kill the daughter, but she doesn't. She actually bonds with her over the typical teenage girl things. And they're doing hair and talking boys. And she even gives her a glass of wine. And she does end up telling his daughter that her father was inappropriate, and I'm not even going to say inappropriate. He raped her as a child and he hurt her. And then we see going into episode 3 where the daughter is sitting on the edge of the bed and Catherine kept going on about how beautiful her hair was. So it's definitely some symbolism there because the daughter is holding a pair of scissors and she's cut off all of her hair when the cops come and find his body. But she stayed at his house. That was the thing. I'm like, she's so careless, but so detail oriented at the same time. Because from what it appears, this had to be like a couple day stretch that she stayed there. But the very, very first victim, who was the trafficker, she had people believing that she was his girlfriend and she's getting away too. I've noticed that when she's out in the world, she's wearing a mask, like a COVID style mask. So she is trying to cover all her bases and not be found on street cameras because there's cameras everywhere you go nowadays. But the camera that caught her flower tattoo, that was Alice's first like hint that this is like some type of almost like cattle branding, that this has something to do with her being trafficked. Um, we also find out that Catherine does have a caring side. I don't know necessarily how much of it has to do with self-interest, but she does. So there's a young lady that she's talking to online, and she realizes that the young lady has gone back to sex work, and she goes and tries to save her, and ultimately almost she ends up dying as a result. And we find out there was another young lady that worked with them, and I use work and I don't mean that to sound insensitive at all. I'm just stating work, but we know that this is abuse. This is human slavery. It's not acceptable, but I'm just using it for context. So please don't butcher me for saying work because I don't mean work like in a honest way. These poor children, and this is a real thing that's going on in the world. So yeah, that's I should do an episode on that too. But um to get back to the series, one of the girls that they were trafficked with actually died. So this is building up more of the reason why she's trying to get revenge of these men. And it actually loops to the end of episode 3, not to jump ahead, but to jump ahead, that Catherine is starting to leave intentional clues that she wants Alice to find. And she has the daughter of her second victim give them a photo, and it's a photo of her friend with the 3 men. So we know there's no questions here. And finally, during episode 3, the NYPD and the FBI are finally working together and are believing Alice and not making her sound crazy that there is a female serial killer, and they need to find out who she is because she is going to keep killing men. And they, or not they, every time Catherine's getting ready to get a new victim, she has this ritual where she prints out a picture of them and she decorates it almost like a miniature like Valentine. So it's almost kind of like a murder card. Like, the cards that they have in prison, the decks where they're like cold cases. It almost kind of gave me that vibe. Like that was her version of like some type of, but she's a serial killer, so she has a ritual. So that is part of her ritual, is because she's working another victim. We don't know who the victim is yet, but we see her correspond with him, and we see her working on like her accent, her style, her just whole the way she carries herself when she's prepping to meet the next victim. So it's fascinating to see her rituals before she commits her crimes. Now, Alice, we know she has a lot of personal turmoil going on. And so her ex-boyfriend, who is also an NYPD officer, assaulted her and resulted in her having to go to the hospital. And when she tried to report it, she has been blackballed, and the whole blue wall has been lifted up against her. So she has been iced out. So that was another layer of why I think there are definitely a layer of why there was a delay in people responding to Alice's claims that there is a female serial killer. But and his name is Marshall, and the nerve of him. So Alice and Marshall's mom were very close, and she is dying of cancer, and he had the nerve to ask her to visit his mother. And I felt kind of bad because like the guilt that Emmy Rossum must have, because they were really close and she loved her like a daughter, but also your son, almost like your son could have killed me, and he's faced no consequences for it. But she goes and she visits his mother, and his mother scolds her and tells her that she's ruining her son's career and to retract what she said because it's not true, and an officer can't have something like that on his jacket. I could not believe it. I was like, if you're going to victimize the victim, it was just, I did not see that coming, because the beginning of the scene, it was very emotional, very loving, and then she tears into her. So I just leave him alone. Alice, stay away from him, leave it work. And that's the other part. They have to work together. Could you imagine having to work with somebody that you not only dated and had a terrible breakup with, but they also assaulted you and they face zero consequences for it? Don't get me started. So that is where we're at now. Episode 4 has not dropped. If I'm correct, it should be dropping on August 2nd. So I will come back with an additional review. I am interested to see the, what is the word I'm looking for? I guess the melding of right and wrong, black and white, because somewhere Alice is going to have a struggle because she is a victim and she sees, I'm sure she feels a lot of empathy towards Catherine as a victim. So, how can you investigate these crimes and not, what would be the word, internalize everything that is going on and try to somehow justify her taking revenge on the men that hurt and trafficked her? I am interested to also see how Nora and Alice's work relationship. Now, Nora is her FBI um, co-worker. She is over the sex crimes division, and Alice has wanted to work in that department forever, and she's finally working with her. And you kind of see the beginning of the relationship when they're working another case with a young lady who ends up being hospitalized, and Alice ends up being called, but then Nora ends up showing up. So I am interested to see the complexities of their relationship, because Nora comes off very no nonsense, but I think she's one of those people that has that hard armor, but she's mushy on the inside. So I'm interested to see if Alice gets to that level, but they finally have had some honest conversation of why Alice is where she's at in the FBI and why you would even leave the NYPD to come work there. So they're starting to build that rapport. They're starting to build that trust. Marshall, I'm interested to see if he ever takes full accountability for what happened. There's a scene where he tries to, I guess, apologize, but it's not true accountability. So I can't wait to see what happens. Bye.